Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. I am your host, Scott Daly, and I'm joined, as always, by this super badass assassin who knows all the quotes and who said them. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
Keep your microphone maintained and always record a backup.
Did you forget to record your backup, Matt?
Oh, shit.
This week on the show, we are returning to one of our absolutely favorite directors with a second addendum. Matt, this is the second addendum episode we've done since we completed our Deconstructing David Fincher series. We're going to be talking about Fincher's newest film, 2023's The Killer. This is the Netflix film because he's in business with Netflix now.
Yeah, it's working out for him, though. I can't complain.
Yeah, no, definitely. Then we are going to spend a little bit of time looking back over our official, formal, absolutely correct ranking of the Fincher films and see where The Killer slots into the list. And we're going to wrap everything up this week talking about the series we are going to be doing next after we finished blind spots, whatever you want to call it, last week. And we want to move on to something else. And we're going to be doing a series we're calling Catching Up with the Oscars, where we will be watching 10 pictures that we anticipate will be Best Pictures nominees at the Oscars. We'll see how that actually works out, Matt. The list it's an estimate right now. The formal list doesn't come out till the 23rd of January.
Okay, yeah, we'll try to, what could possibly go wrong? We're
I have
prepared.
a plan, and we'll get into the plan. I promise I promise you, it's gonna work. It's gonna work.
Okay.
But first, let's get into our main segment of the week. Let's talk all about David Fincher's The Killer.
I find music a useful distraction. A focus tool. Keeps the inner voice from wandering. This is what it takes. My process is purely logistical. If I'm effective, it's because of one simple fact. I don't give a
Matt, what is this movie all about?
After a fateful near miss, an assassin battles his employers and himself on an international manhunt he insists isn't personal.
It's kind of a cheeky little introduction there. I like it.
Oh, I was just using an American accent. I don't know.
Matt, you are American. You don't have to. You don't have to put an affect on.
Oh, okay, that's good. It's really
This movie was written by Alexis Noland, Luc Jacamon, and Andrew Kevin Walker. It stars Michael Fassbender and Tilda Swinton. That's pretty much it. A bunch of other characters, but not a bunch of other characters. Just a couple other characters outside of that. Matt, I gotta know, what'd you think of The Killer?
I mean, it's kind of perfect. It's kind of exactly what you want it to be. It's like if David Fincher directed an action movie where everything about that works exactly as well as you would hope. And he also brings his particular ironic sensibility to this. And then also, for good measure, it's a comedy, basically. It's the closest we'll ever see to David Fincher directing a comedy, except maybe Fight Club, I guess. I love this movie, and I want to hear what you think about it. Jeez, wow. Okay.
It's okay. You're only a professional talker.
Yeah, I'm only a professional talker. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, Scott. There's a lot going on. What'd you think?
I really, really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I am 100% with you that it is just flat out David Fincher's comedy. This is a comedy in the vein of David Fincher, which means there's a lot of people out there that watch this movie and don't know it's a comedy. You read some reviews about this movie and people aren't talking about how fucking funny it is. And I'm like, wait, why aren't you talking about how funny this movie is? Because it's hilarious in this very kind of incredibly Fincherian way, which is dark and weird and very 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 pretty composition, but just it's silly in a very specific kind of way.
Yeah. Well, I think dark is the right word. I was gonna say dry, and then I was like, that's not quite it, because it's not. There aren't. It's not like there are jokes. It's the humor is all like the darkness of the situation, and like the ridiculousness of the situation.
Yeah.
I don't know. People probably listening to us without watching the movie in some cases. So to briefly recap, like the thing that clues you in that this is a movie, and like so I first watched that this is a comedy. So I first watched this with my brother, and you're watching like the first 20 minutes of the movie are this slow, very precisely directed sequence of our assassin character, preparing for this assassination. He's waiting. He's going through all of these rituals that he does. He's so meticulous. He's so careful. All of everything is planned and precise. And he has this internal monologue where he talks about like the demands of being so precise, and these mantras that he has running through his head at all times. There's a nearly incessant internal monologue, and finally it gets to the point where he's going to take the shot at the guy he's trying to assassinate, and he shoots and misses. and me and my brother were just both like disbelievingly like, what? and it's such, and then everything from the movie kind of proceeds from that, where like that's the idea. Is he's consistently sort of self-deceptive and full of shit, and never quite aware of how full of shit he is, and he's like always breaking his own rules, or just screwing up in ways that are funny in a very dark way, and that's the source of the comedy, really, and just like the horribleness of the situations that he gets into as well.
I've written and rewatched those first 20 minutes today, because it was been a few days since I watched the film originally, but I wanted to rewatch that first part, because it is really fascinating how Fincher kind of navigates this thing, because the opening credits start in a very Fincher way of, they're incredibly loud, they're incredibly stylistic, and it's just like different methods of assassinating people with names on top of it. Like there's like a gun, there's like a garrote, there's like poison.
Yeah.
Like it just gets like increasingly intricate. At one point there's like a snake.
Yeah.
And
he throws a toaster into a bathtub.
Yeah. It's just like all these things that like, just like all the ways you could think to assassinate someone played over this cool music. And then you open into this guy basically sitting on a table in France, looking out of a window and talking to himself. And the thing that I find most interesting about the internal monologue going on here, Matt, is it reads as voiceover at first. You just assume it's voiceover, but then you kind of realize that the voiceover is occurring simultaneously, because when events in the movie happen, it interrupts the voiceover. The best example of this is he's sitting on the table, like droning on about something, and then the door to the WeWork office that he's hiding in opens up, and the voiceover cuts out too, because it's like it's a narrative he's telling himself in his head as he goes. And I think the thing that we noted about Fincher, and that is just ultimately true about Fincher, is that he has characters lie via dialogue constantly. He just like, I think Fincher believes all people are liars, just like in general, like human beings are just liars.
Yeah.
And they lie to other people, they lie to themselves, and he views dialogue as just another example of dishonesty. And so when people talk in Fincher movies, they're usually not talking about what they're talking about. Rather, they're saying things, they're telling a story, but the real truth is underneath all that. And like, that's a really interesting thing, because in voiceover, you don't always expect that, right? Like, you don't always expect the kind of unreliable narrator thing that you get, but it becomes increasingly apparent that this guy's just kind of completely full of shit.
Yeah. I mean, in ways that are interesting too, right? Like I think that one thing that I definitely want to get into in this conversation is like so the mantra has several parts. I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. There's like 8 distinct parts of the mantra, and he breaks, as I think most people who are clued into the idea that this is a funny movie, he breaks every single rule
He
that he
does.
has. He, you know, I think the most interesting one that I kind of want to start with, I guess, is that one of the rules is forbid empathy, which he says a few times, right?
Mhm.
And he also just kind of, aside from his mantra, he talks a lot about just the idea of like, I'm not like other people.
Mhm.
I don't feel, I don't care about people. I, you know,
I
his,
don't give a fuck.
yeah,
Is like
exactly.
the big, yeah.
But like, we constantly see this isn't true. Like
Yeah.
I mean, just starting with the fact that his heart rate is elevated prior to the assassination, which is, you could argue, kind of what screws him up, perhaps. But then also, like, the secretary who, you know, logically, irrationally, if he were this cold-blooded psycho, he would just kill out of hand. He gives her the, you know, he does kill her, of course, but he kills her in a, you know, a careful way designed to look like an accident, so that her children will receive the insurance money or whatever, which is
Right.
what she had asked for. Which he, you know, it's a very, very dark sort of empathy, right? But it's still it was still basically taking a risk and sort of breaking his own rules to, I don't know, compromise with someone, you could say.
Uh-huh.
um
You could just
and
not kill her though.
he could just not kill her. So like that, I think that's kind of what's interesting about the movie, is the movie definitely is not interested in going in the direction of like, he has a change of heart or something. Like, he's still pretty, he's still awful. He's still a very awful person. But like,
Yeah.
you know, the fact that he then goes and talks to Tilda Swinton, it's like, he definitely shouldn't have gone into the restaurant and talked to Tilda Swinton. I don't know if that's exactly the same as having empathy, or maybe wanting to connect with another human being who he feels like he's a kindred spirit with. But he absolutely, it was very stupid of him to have let her know that he was even around. He
Yeah.
should have just, you know, blindsided her and ambushed her and killed her.
Just put a snake in her booth.
Yeah, snake in her booth. Yeah. Uh, so like, there's all it's not just that he breaks his rules out of just like complete incompetence. It's he's breaking his rules because he's like human. And
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I think that's a lot of what the movie's doing, actually.
It is also really interesting that we are told that he is a very good assassin.
Yeah.
That he's very good at his job. Like, I think the quote early in the movie is like, I'm batting 1,000. I would be batting 1,000. I don't count the one guy that had a heart attack that I was going to kill, but I should, but I don't count him. But like, I don't think we see any of that in the movie. Like, I think he's very meticulous and he's very detail oriented, and that's like good, but he also continually fucks up, like over and over and over again. Like, I feel like he's meticulous about the things that he doesn't need to be meticulous about, and then like the big picture stuff he's stupid about. Like, when the lawyer says, I can't believe you went home.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, he goes back there.
Yeah.
He just goes home again.
Right.
And it's like, they're going to come kill you.
Yeah. Well, I think I was thinking about that, because it's like, it's almost like he's worked himself into this cul-de-sac in his life where, I don't know how you get out of that life once you've gotten into it, is one way of looking at it. Like he's in this underworld of assassins. And I mean, first of all, we don't really know anything about how the actual underworld of assassins works, but like in most films, there's you know, the notion of like, it's not like you're just going to peacefully retire from being a hired assassin. You know too much. They're going to try to come after you. And he just seems, I like what you said a second ago. Like, yeah, he seems so like thoroughly anchored in the present that he totally fails to think ahead.
Mm-hmm.
One of his major rules is anticipate, don't improvise. And like, sometimes his plans will seem clever, where like he does anticipate certain things. Like, he's not totally always stupid, right? But then he doesn't anticipate something, and then he has to improvise. Like,
he's constantly improvising.
I think the best example is the man who came to his house and beat up his girlfriend, and then he goes to that guy's house and he like has this clever thing where he like throws some meat to the dog with some drugs in it to make the dog fall asleep, and then he sneaks in and gets into the house, and like it's all like it's genuinely fun in just a straightforward, like, oh yeah, he's gonna get this guy. But then the guy is not quite as dumb as he thinks and notices that he's there, and then it just turns into this brutal knockdown, drag out fight where he comes out on top, but only after getting his ass kicked.
Yeah.
And definitely having to improvise a bunch. So like that to me was a good example of like, yeah, I mean, he's not like horrible at this. It's just he's not as good at it as he thinks he is, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like there is a disconnect between the voiceover and what's happening on the screen, I think.
Yeah.
In many ways, I think one of my favorite moments is with the lawyer, and he's like, 9-inch nails, which, by the way, hilarious that they're 9-inch nails, and he says 9-inch. It's jokes. The movie has jokes. 52 years of age. I should have 6 minutes. And then the guy just dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Like that's the thing. It is, I agree with you. It's not that he's stupid. It's that he pretends like he knows what he's talking about a lot. I think I compared this to like a guy who spends all his time on Reddit, where he'll just like jump into Reddit threads just talking about like 40 different topics. And then like it sounds smart when he says it, but then you think about it for like a couple minutes and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You just have like a very surface level understanding of a whole bunch of things, and you participate in those conversations as if you know more. And that's what's going on in his head, kind of. Like the quote that I laughed at the most was at the very beginning of the movie. He says he's outlining his entire life philosophy, and he says it's "do what thou wilt is the whole of the law," to quote someone.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
God, what a fascinating character, because like he's played by Michael Fassbender, which is a very good looking man who plays a badass very well. And then we dress him in this German tourist outfit to make him look goofy.
Yeah.
And then we make him kind of behave goofily, like just how it waffles between, oh, that was very clever, to you kind of an idiot, aren't you? Is really fascinating to me, because like the method for him getting into the lawyer's office is like pretty smart, actually.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. He's actually generally very good at getting into situations. He's just not that great at getting out of them.
Right. Well, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. Like this is a guy who like every time he washes his hands in a sink will like spray to get rid of his DNA, and then like he orders a key fob hacking device on Amazon in front of the building he's going to use it on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's stuff like that where it's just like, oh, like you seem kind of dumb sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's definitely, there's a lot of carelessness. I think it's interesting because you're watching the movie, especially the first time. Okay. So I rewatched the first 20 minutes of the movie also today, prior to this conversation. And like, it really hits a lot different the second time, especially that bit, because you don't realize the first time like what you should be feeling about these things. And so like for example, this is just a small note, but you know, his employer calls him and they have a terse conversation, and then he drops his phone on the street and smashes it with his foot and then kicks it onto the street, which like if you think you're watching a badass action movie about a badass assassin, totally fine thing to do in a movie, right? But like in real life, if you were like walking on the sidewalk and somebody half a block ahead of you did that, you would be so weirded out, and like that would stick in your memory so much as like, well, yes, officer, I saw this guy dressed like a German tourist. He dropped his phone on purpose, stepped on it, and then kicked it into the street. And there's a lot of little things like that where you're like, okay, that's movie clever is what that is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this a lot, where it's like this movie is so made for people, like basically it's made for exactly me, who grew up watching Mission Impossible and 007 and John Wick and 100 other movies about a cool badass guy who always knows just the cool thing to say and is totally cold-blooded and violent, but you know, only against people who deserve it generally. And you want to, you know, you want to be him on some level, even though like you don't really want to be 007, but like you kind of do. It's there's this incredible allure to being a character like this. And it's it's done on purpose. That's how these movies are constructed, and this movie is having so much fun with this idea of pretending that it's that kind of movie for the
Yeah.
first 20 minutes, and then being like, all right, now let's go into how it would really be to be one of these people, because you still have to be that person even when you're not like in the middle of a badass action scene. In fact, a lot of it is drudgery and waiting.
Yeah.
And then even if you're in the middle of a badass action scene, it's actually going to be a lot more confusing and painful than you would like to imagine. And then I think I definitely wanted to say this, like the final shot of the movie is just the best, because it's he has won, he has killed all of his enemies, basically. He is back with his girlfriend at the house. He's fixing her a drink. He sits down next to her on the chair by the pool, and we have a close up of the side of his face, and he twitches, and then the movie's over, and the twitch is like, and now the rest of your life is ahead of you, and you've got all these people who want to kill you, who are still out there somewhere, and you just got to live now. You just got to live with yourself and the situation you've created. Bye-bye. The end, like perfect ending for the movie.
Yeah. No, gosh, I agree. I love that ending. It's very The Graduate-esque of just this moment of focusing on the character's face and allowing that to process, but even almost even more subtle than that.
Yeah.
I love what you said a lot there. I think that the phone smashing stuff really spoke to me on this second viewing as well, because like it doesn't, I think you're absolutely right that doesn't make sense to do. Like he does it again in the bathroom of the airport, by the way, after talking to the lawyer on the phone. He takes a SIM card out and then he drops the phone on the floor of the bathroom and smashes it. And I'm like, you can just throw it in the trash, man. Right. Like, I think that like it does somehow strike me as, and I don't know if the point of this is like the character is this or Fincher is making fun of this, but people have watched a lot of movies about assassins, like you said, and this is what they think being an assassin is like. And so is it Fassbender has watched a lot of movies about assassins that he's just playing assassin all the time and he's just kind of gotten lucky? Or is this just poking fun at the whole genre? Or maybe it's both? Because I agree with you. Like you're going through all this trouble to dress up as this German tourist who doesn't draw any attention, and then you consistently do things that draw attention to you.
Yeah.
The other thing I really love, just this, and I don't even know if it was supposed to be a joke, but he gets to the airport and then he walks to a trash can and he takes out a gun in front of the airport and then sprays it off and drops it into the trash can. And I'm like, why did you wait until now to do that? Why did you get rid of the gun before? You're standing in front of an airport with a gun in your hand. Yeah. And there's a bunch of people around. It's bright. There's lights.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of stuff in the airport scene that I didn't rewatch that part, but like I love when he's standing in line to go through I don't know if it's customs or if it's just security, but probably my favorite shot of the movie actually is he's standing there, like obviously nervous, but trying very hard not to look nervous. And like the dog turns and looks at him, and Fassbender's take is just a perfect take where his face goes like slack and he like locks eyes with the dog, and then he gets out of line and like, yeah, like I don't remember if there's one point where he like gets on the plane and there's like this other guy on the plane that just like weirds him out, so he gets off the plane or something, and it's like he's convinced himself this guy is following him, and it's like there's so much paranoia where probably nothing was happening there. Actually, like probably that was just some guy on the airplane, right? And
the dog looked at me funny.
Yeah,
that's what I have written down in my notes is this dog looked at me funny.
The dog looked at him funny. A guy on the airplane looked at him funny, and he totally disrupts. He probably draws much more attention to himself by disrupting what was going to be a normal, travel thing. Getting out of line and rushing to the bathroom looks way more suspicious than just, staying in line.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff is, gosh, I really like what you just said about like, is he just a guy who watched too many spy thrillers and he's made all this stuff up, and he's actually, because we know nothing about his backstory. I don't
Yeah.
remember the movie ever telling us, like, very often these movies will just drop a single line that's like, yeah, of course he's ex special forces, Green Beret, Navy SEAL, Purple Heart, Medal of Honor, and then you move on, and it's just like, okay, we've established like why he's a badass. He's a badass because he was trained in the art of killing in the military. But this guy, he really does seem like a guy who goes to like reddit.com/r/assassins
Assassin.
and has so much karma on the assassin subforum.
Yeah.
And that's where he learned all this stuff.
There's little hints. I think the closest thing we get to a hint of his backstory is when he references the lawyer that's kind of heading up, the business. He says, "This is the man who convinced me to get out of the study of law and moving into trying to break it." So that's the closest we get to a backstory for him, that he was training to be a lawyer, perhaps in law school, and then decided to become an assassin instead. It is like, you're so right. There's so many clues and hints that like I think he says early on that like you watch enough episodes of Dateline and you know how to get yourself caught, how you can get yourself caught, right? And like that's not that's not like, I don't think real assassins are like taking notes from Dateline about like, here's how I make sure no one catches me. Like that's a little silly. I think the other one that made me laugh was when he's post gunshot fuck up, he's running away and he says, "WWJWBD, what would John Wilkes Booth do?" And I was like, why John Wilkes Booth?
He get shot in a farmhouse a few miles from this location.
John Wilkes Booth, like not an assassin, an actor who just was super racist and hated Lincoln and hated the fact that slaves were going to be freed and get the right to vote hopefully one day, and just like decided to kill him. And just like it's like, who is the only assassin I can think of in the moment? And you pick John Wilkes Booth. It's so weird. And that kind of stuff that really leads me to believe that whole theory that like this is just a guy who's playing at this role. He doesn't really know, like he watched too many movies, and yes, he's an assassin. Yes, he found his way into this thing, and it's like, but he's just pretending, and it's all bullshit. And I think one thing that's really interesting to me is, the entire events of this movie are basically, he gets home, finds out his girlfriend has been beaten up at the, like, barely within an inch of her life. And everything from here on out is basically a quest for revenge, more or less. But like the movie spends so little time on who she is at all.
Yeah.
Like I don't even remember her name. And I think this is all intentional. Like I think like she's a justification for these actions, but it's really nothing to do with her at all.
Yeah. I like the idea that we don't know what she means to him actually. Like, is it more? Is it the principle of the thing that they went to his house and beat up his girlfriend, or is it that he actually cares about her specifically, and wants revenge? Or is it even? I'm not too sure about any of this, but like, you can also read it not as revenge, but just as like, yet more sort of ass covering paranoid response to the danger posed to him. So he's like, they sent these two people after me, I'm going to kill them. Like the girlfriend is incidental. Actually, I'm going to kill them first, and then I'm going to find out who paid them to kill me, and then I'm going to go find that person. And we have to talk about the borderline like mystery of the movie, which is, why didn't he kill the guy who hired them to kill him?
Yeah. Why the only person he doesn't kill? He kills the cab driver that drove the assassins to his house, but he doesn't kill the client that hired the people to kill him.
Yeah, he's just like, we good, and then trusts the guy who's like obviously a liar and a horrible person when he's like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, that was so interesting. He meets this guy who is this I think supposed to be tech billionaire, right?
Mhm.
Like incredibly wealthy. The reason he was hired by this guy was to take out one of his competitors. And he's just like, I don't know, man. Like this is the first time I done this. They didn't really tell me anything. The guy called me and just said, we'll make it right. Is that okay with you? And I just said, yeah, I got nothing against you. And it's just like, you're a billionaire.
Yeah.
I don't believe this personification you're presenting here
No.
at all.
I don't think you're well. Okay, this is what was like legitimately confusing to me about the scene. I don't think this is like the movie's mistake, but I just don't know what to make of it. Which is the guy says all that stuff that you said, and then Fassbender, like the character, the killer, says, "Isn't it a little odd that you have no idea why I'm here?" And the guy's like, "I don't know," and it's like, okay, so like the reading of this is like, this guy should know exactly why there's an assassin in his house.
Yeah.
Unless he's actually very stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pretending not to know what this is about, hoping that he can get off basically not be killed on the basis of like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just a hapless idiot. And Fassbender, calls him out on that and then just leaves. Like I was thinking at the very least he would say that line, like, isn't it a lot that you have no idea why I'm here, and then kill the guy, like,
And they kill him. Yeah.
calling him out on like, obviously you know what's going on, you know why I'm here, and you're full of shit. Goodbye. But he doesn't, and
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting.
He has killed every single person tangentially related to the business and what was done to him, like the cab driver, the assistant of the lawyer, like all these people have to die. I have to do this. And then the one person who's to blame for all of this gets to live.
Uh-huh.
It's so fascinating. And I wish I could give you a definitive answer here on the why. And part of me just wants to shrug this off as because he's stupid.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think you could. I joked around with this with you about this earlier, but like that this is a taking a swipe at the American justice system, where everyone is punished for this rich billionaire's crime except for the rich billionaire who gets to go on doing whatever he wants and suffers no consequences of this whatsoever. And maybe that is part of it. Maybe Fincher is taking out his frustrations with the system, throwing that in, while at the same time demonstrating the kind of hapless nature of this assassin. Because I just don't, and I don't know, like maybe it's that twitch at the end, whatever. Like I just don't believe that he's safe now.
No, I don't either.
Like there's no way this billionaire isn't gonna like call someone else to kill him.
Yeah, I don't think he believes he's safe either.
Yeah,
which really makes you curious why. I feel like I understand dualistically why we leave the billionaire alive, because it leaves you, the viewer, like really deeply frustrated because it's like if there was a John Wick movie and he killed everybody and then got to the final guy who had ordered all of the things to happen and then spared him for reasons that didn't even make sense. Like it's not even like he took pity and it was like a moral thing. It was just like John Wick just decides not to kill him for no reason and leaves, and you would just be like, what I want my money back. And that's basically what this is him, doing the John Wick thing, killing everyone, even if they don't deserve it. And then he finally gets to the final boss, and then he just, again, spares him for no reason. It's very frustrating. But then okay, so that's the dualistic level. Like at the level of like the character, I don't actually understand why the character does that. And I don't even have a candidate theory for why.
I mean, especially considering the incredible amount of risk that he had to go through to get there. Like it just, I don't know. I mean, I think I think you're absolutely right that's part of it. That's what Fincher wants to leave you with here. Like this is a movie that is almost by design not satisfying in any of the ways you would think it would be. Like if you came into this a movie called The Killer that's about an assassin, you have a certain level of expectation going into this movie.
Yeah.
And the movie continually upends that expectation. Like,
Yeah.
and the fascinating thing about this to me is Fincher shoots this kind of very straightforwardly, and by that I mean not like boringly, but like he shoots it as an action film.
Yeah.
Like the sequence where Fassbender is riding away on the electric scooter, like is shot like a very intense chase scene. It's just nobody's chasing it.
Yeah.
And like,
true. Yeah.
like that is kind of how the whole movie works. Like the comedy almost comes from the absurdity of the movie playing all these things straight, and yet it's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
So weird.
Yeah. So, okay. I love this. And this, I think you've helped me connect some things. And so now I do have at least a candidate theory.
Okay.
So like the movie as we see it, including the voiceover and everything, is the way that this man perceives himself. He perceives himself as living in a John Wick movie. When he screws up his assassination and he has to steal a moped, he perceives this as a badass action getaway chase scene, like you just said, because we're seeing and hearing the movie from his point of view. I think that that's the voiceover, right? I think it's actually fair to say any Fincher film with a strong voiceover element, like for example Fight Club, is actually filmed from inside the character's worldview.
Yeah.
It's the way they see the world, very, very literally in Fight Club. And that happens again here. And so this, like, all of the behaviors that are actually from the outside just paranoia, he is sort of like choosing to frame for himself as like, oh, I'm just so meticulous and thoughtful. It's like, nah, man, you're doing a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be done, and you're not doing a lot of stuff that should be done, and you're not actually that good at this. But it's almost like killing people is actually just pretty easy to do. and he's been lucky up to this point. Okay, so connecting this up to like letting the guy live. Okay, so if it's a movie, I think what he feels like he's missing is an audience, maybe. And it maybe is, God, there's not much for this to go on, but maybe the idea is like it would just break his heart to kill this guy, because now this guy knows, like, hey, I'm John Wick. I killed all these people that you sent after me, and now I'm here in your penthouse, and I could kill you if I wanted to. And don't you see what a badass I am? And now, if I just killed you, then that's all gone. No one would know. It would sort of be for nothing, you know. It's and this all presupposes that I'm right about the idea of like him wanting to see himself as an action hero, I guess. But that does make some things click together for me.
Yeah, I think you're onto something here. I agree, because to extrapolate on that, perhaps part of him wants the people to come after him.
Yeah.
Like wants the big action sequence at his house. Wants John Wick 2 where they blow up his house.
Yeah.
And then he gets to kill them all again.
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely. There's this feels thin even as I say it, but like the fact that he has to get into a big fist fight with the guy in his house in Florida or wherever it is, it's like you didn't even have to go into his house. You could have just like waited for him to come out, shot him from the fence as he was coming out of his house, and left. Right. There's no reason to go into that guy's house.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. Would have been so easy to just kill him and leave. But he has to poison the dog and sneak inside and be creeping around and open himself up to the possibility of getting into a big fist fight, which then happens. It's almost like he wanted it to happen. He, never yielded an advantage, right? It's like, okay, this guy's a giant mass of muscle, and you're putting yourself in close quarters with him. That's not to your advantage. That's a stupid approach, right? I mean, that's obviously true. The only question is whether he's doing this either on purpose or self-sabotaging subliminally or is
Yeah.
just incompetent, basically.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think a great piece of evidence for this is when he digs up in his lawn for a briefcase with guns in it. Um, why, why were those buried out front?
I don't know.
Why don't you just put them in a safe in your house, man?
It's John Wick, man.
I mean, right? Like,
yeah, it's badass.
I think that's it. I do, and I also like kind of thinking back about the Tilda Swinton conversation. I think is such a really important part of the movie, right? And I pulled up the quote here because I wanted to remember it, but she basically calls him out on why he's here, what we talked about, right? Why take this risk? And he said his response is desperate for conversation. And she says, I'm flattered, but no, you're here because you couldn't help yourself. You expected to sit across from me and feel nothing but reassured, like that day when you shouldered your weapon and somehow missed. So I think to kind of pull all these things together, this is a guy who built his life around being this awesome action star, this awesome assassin, this badass guy, and he has this internal monologue running in his head all the time about how awesome and meticulous and perfect he is. He's batting 1,000, but he's he's uh gracious about it. Like, I won't count the one that I didn't I've never fucked up, but that I won't count the one that I didn't technically kill him. Oh, that's so kind of you, guy.
Yeah, right.
And then he fucks up, he misses,
Yeah.
and it throws his entire worldview into chaos. And it throws his identity, his this whole facade he's built up around himself, just completely thrown into chaos. And he is desperate to prove himself as that exact person. And so none of this is about the girl, right? None of this is about his girlfriend that was hurt. It's all about proving to himself and proving to others that he is exactly that badass that he thinks he is. And so why did he sit down with Tilda Swinton? Because he wanted to prove to her that he was a badass.
Yeah.
Why did he approach the billionaire that way? Same reason. And I think it ties into exactly what you said. He wanted an audience to know that he was cool, that he did all this cool shit.
Yeah.
If he had just killed the guy, no one would know. And it's not enough for him to know internally. He wants everyone else to know too.
Yeah. You reminded me of the few scenes with him and the girlfriend, and I guess the girlfriend's brother, where it's very subtle, and I want to watch those scenes again, actually, because I don't know that I'm right, but like I was reading this vibe of they're actually terrified of him, which they should be, right?
Yeah.
But because my recollection is like the stuff that she says over and over, like I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything to them, even though they beat me and cut me up and everything. I didn't say anything. You'd be so proud of me. I didn't say anything. And it's like, okay, well, the obvious interpretation of this is she's really terrified that he's going to kill her for having talked. And so she's just desperate to try to convince him that she didn't talk. So she's, she doesn't trust him. She knows he's a killer. She knows what he does. I think that's strongly implied. Because otherwise, why would she be saying I didn't talk unless she knew something, right? That she could say that would be bad. And the brother's performance, I think that's an even shorter, scene, but his behavior comes off as frightened of this guy as well. And like both. So these people who are in his life, who are kind of the only people who sort of know him, they're also scared of him. And I think he likes it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like why else, have things be that way, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because
yeah,
I was going to say, because why tell her why tell her anything if
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that maybe helps prove this out is just it's so weird how uncharacterized those two characters are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't know, like we're calling her girlfriend. Is it his girlfriend? Is it his wife? Like how long have they been together?
Yeah.
Did she, when she met him, did she know he was an assassin? How long into the relationship did he tell him? Like, does the brother know? I guess so, right? Like, it's so loose. It's so ill-defined. How any of this kind of interacts with each other, and that's it feels like such a specific choice to do it that way, to frame it that way. Yeah, I mean, these are just people, like, maybe even it's like, he has the fancy house and girlfriend back home because that's part of it. That's part of the image that he's created in his head.
Yeah. And crucially, though, they need to know how badass he is. Also, I mean, somebody needs to know, right? It can't. It's the idea of the character in Heat, De Niro's character, just popped into my head, where it's like, in that film, it's quite different in a lot of ways, where like he's this bank robber who lives by these meticulous rules, where it's like, you can have no attachments, you can't have anything in your life that you can't walk away from in 10 seconds. And then the final thing that happens in that movie is he it takes 15 seconds to walk away, because he finally has something in his life that he actually cares about, and that's what does him in. I think this is actually sort of thematically similar, where it's like, he's trapped between this sort of impossible character that he is trying to inhabit and convince himself that he is, through this constant monotonous monologue, and the reality of his humanity and his frailty and his weakness and his paranoia and his natural empathy, which ends up being a weakness. But these are all the ways in which he's actually human that are ruining his ability to be John Wick. It's, I love this conversation we've had. I just, at the level of it being just a fun movie to watch, it's a very well done like thriller assassin movie, even aside from the fact that it's also sort of a satire of a thriller assassin movie. I definitely don't want to give the impression that it's like too good to be, or rather thinks it's too good to be an actual action movie. Like, it is a fun action movie. I really enjoy it on that level as well.
Yeah, I mean, there is some enjoyment over, like we said, like the method to his madness of getting into the lawyer's office, and then the meticulousness which he ends up getting into the billionaire's office. That's like fun stuff to watch. Like, he's good at that stuff, and I think all this other stuff is layered on top of it. It's really interesting because, like, I went to Rotten Tomatoes while we were talking because I was curious to see what the audience score for this movie was. And it's 59%. That's not terrible, but that's not great. Like, as compared to the critics' 85%. And like, that to me it feels like a thing that's almost by design, that like people are going to go to this movie feeling expecting a very specific thing and not getting that. And when you look at these reviews from the audience, it's like, not interesting, boring, incredibly dull, contrived. Like, the script is so terrible. Like, and it's just because, like, I'm not even telling these people they're wrong. Well, I am. They're wrong. But like, it's because you were expecting a certain thing. You're expecting a badass action movie, and this is a movie kind of ripping that character and that person to shreds.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm honestly, I'm sort of reeling hearing that the audience score is so low, because the worst that I heard, like, I recommended it to somebody, and they said it's kind of slow, it's kind of boring, I don't get it. And I was like, it's a comedy. And then they were like, what? And I was like, okay, so like the first 20 minutes he's talking up what a badass he is, and then he misses, and then like, that's all I had to say. And then they were like, oh, okay, I get it now. And it's like, okay, well, if you didn't get that, I guess it makes it hard, because you're just like, why is this the most boring action movie ever? And you don't quite know what to do with it.
Not to single one person out, but here's Mini Freak Zero, who gave the movie 1.5 stars. Said, movie went nowhere, boring as ever, except the one fight scene with Fassbender and the big thug. Otherwise, no development arc. Just job goes bad, run away, come home to bad, clean up, then clean up, then clean up, etc., etc. Like the Smiths soundtrack, though.
I mean, and what's funny is, of course, like we just said, he shouldn't have even gone into the guy's house and had a fist fight. So I think like the reality of a movie about like a real assassin is that it would be even more boring than this movie, because
Yeah, no, it would be incredibly boring. Yeah,
it would be a lot of like even the action parts wouldn't feel like action. They would feel sterile and cold and totally removed from any kind of risk, because a smart assassin who has a lot of time to plan would just do it in a way where there's no risk to them.
yeah.
Which he's not particularly good at doing, apparently. I mean, so it's interesting. I'm thinking about the intro now, where he says like I'm so I'm actually, he basically says, he doesn't say it in these words, but he's basically saying like, God, I'm bored of these long range shooting people through windows jobs. I really appreciate up close work, where, he says, God, when was my last nice quiet drowning? And it's like, God, what an unnecessary level of risk to take on as the assassin, if you're
Yeah.
having to like physically struggle with someone, when it like, there's no way that's ever going to be necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, there was something about even what the assassination in the opening sequence is. Like, I feel like we spend, like we said, 20 minutes watching this guy's process, and he's like very meticulous, and he's like sleeping on the table for some reason, which is, that looks uncomfortable. Why would you not have a pillow? And then like the job is just, there's a guy's he's in the window across the way.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna shoot him.
Yeah.
And like his whole entire plan would be fouled if like the maid didn't open the curtain.
Yeah.
And it's like that was it. This is like, you've spent 5 days here like meticulously doing all these things and eating egg McMuffins without the bread, and then you're just gonna shoot a guy through a window. That's it.
Yeah, I don't remember if you pointed this out or someone else did, but like he has to reassemble the rifle before the shot, and it's like this is a huge amount of time that he's taking reassembling this rifle. Which, by the way, like if you misalign something in this process, you're gonna miss your shot simply due to the rifle not being like basically put together exactly the way you put it together when you sighted it in the first place. And now he's having to do this while he's under stress and under a deadline because the guy is arriving. So it's like, why was the rifle not just ready?
Yeah.
Oh, so we could make a quick getaway? That doesn't make sense. He could have made a quick getaway regardless and just left the rifle behind if he needed to. Like there's so many unnecessary complications that he adds to this. Even like there's so many things that sound badass at the time, where he's like, a subsonic round would, and I'm like, why are you using a subsonic round? I get that you're using a subsonic round so that the shot is quieter, but it can't be worth it. Like, because like everybody's immediately going to know there was a gunshot anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's an unnecessary chance, right? It's like,
it's because someone made a thread on the Assassin subreddit about the advantages of subsonic rounds, and there was a 40-day 100,000 post conversation about it.
I'm not even sure if you can make it. I'm not even sure if you can shoot a subsonic out of a rifle. I think it would. I think you can shoot him out of pistols. I don't even think that would work.
He's bullshit, man. He's bullshitting. Everything he says is bullshit. One of the early quotes is he says, as Popeye the Sailor always used to say, I am what I am. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love this movie. I really do. It's so silly. It like, David Fincher is such a weirdo, and I love him for it. Honestly, Matt, this makes me like want to go revisit all his movies and see like the moments that he was thinking he was telling a really funny thing, and just nobody got it because he's a weirdo.
Yeah,
I mean, I think you're right that Fight Club does have a lot of funny moments in it, but
yeah, Fight Club is also a comedy. Basically, I think you get looked at like a weirdo if you say that, like, yeah, Fight Club is primarily a comedy, but I really think it is that is the case. I mean, there is the whole Ed Norton monologue is this just like dark, comic, making fun of himself. There's so many actual jokes in that movie too. Like, just I don't know. Yeah. And anyway, there's probably other stuff, like you said. There's some stuff I can think of in Zodiac where it's like definitely just like, this is so dark that it's meant to be funny.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Anything else you wanted to say about The Killer specifically before we
Nope.
moved on? We haven't really talked about the performances that much. Fassbender's great. I love Tilda Swinton and everything. Like, she just so good. Good.
Yeah, I thought she was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was like maybe the point of this movie is all the assassins are like this, because like the moment where she falls down and like she's gonna stab him, like that just felt like so movie. Like that's like a lot of people in the reviews, the audience reviews I was reading is like, I've seen all this stuff before, incredibly contrived, been there, done that. And I'm like, maybe that's the point, that like that this is just movie assassin, the movie.
I literally don't know what they think they mean by the word contrived.
Well, okay. Context. Yeah. No, that I agree with that, but
yeah. Okay. Whatever. Yeah.
All right. Now we have the very difficult task, Matt, of slotting The Killer into our 11 film Fincher ranking list. So, can you read the list from least good to best?
Okay.
To refresh the audience.
The definitely least good movie is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Followed by that is his remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That was number 10. And then at number 9, The Game, a movie which I think we both liked a lot more when we were younger and had a lot of complaints about this time around. Number 8 was Alien 3, which we're now into the actually good movies, even though it's number 8. Number 7 was Panic Room, which is like, a solid movie, but not a soaring work of genius. Number 6 was Mank, which we were talking about earlier. I just don't remember Mank that well. I need to rewatch it because
I'm very surprised we put Mank as high as we did.
Above Panic Room, above Number 5 was Gone Girl. I still feel like that's probably about right. Number 4 was The Social Network. Number 3 was Fight Club. If I recall correctly, that got a lot of bonus points due to nostalgia. Number 2 was Seven, and number 1 was Zodiac. I think you and I basically had a fist fight in the backyard over the placement of those last two, relative to each other.
And I won, of course,
which you won. Yeah,
read a lot of Reddit on how to fist fight. So
yeah, big reach.
So I mean, like, looking over this list 3 years after we put it together, I can't believe I let you talk me into Curious Case of Benjamin Button being the worst of this list. And I think that's a pretty good movie.
I just didn't like that movie. I mean, where would you put it now?
I don't know. So here's the problem. Candidly, to everyone, the Blank Check podcast, which stole our Deconstructing director's idea, they just completely stole it. They just did a series on Fincher, and so for the last few months, I've been listening to their marathon episodes. People think we have long episodes. Blank Check does like 3-hour episodes for a movie. Yeah. It's wild. So I've been listening to those episodes, and like they do a very good job when they really like the movies of being very persuasive for why the movies are good. And they really enjoyed Benjamin Button, and I really loved their episode on Benjamin Button. I really loved listening to them talk about it. So I haven't watched it again anytime soon, but like I'm very high on it right now because of just that podcast. So,
well, okay,
I don't know.
I listened to that episode. By the way, we have to say that the name of their whole Fincher podcast series is The Curious Pod of Benjamin Buttcast. Just to give you a sense. So I listened to that episode too, and the thing is, they agree with my take on the movie, but they think it was intentional. In which case, if they're right, I guess I need to watch it again. So what I mean by that is they were like, this guy's an idiot. This guy is so full of shit. The premise of the movie is basically like, you think youth is wasted on the young. Well, even if you got to be Benjamin Button and live your life backwards such that your youth was actually at the end of your life, you would still waste it because humans are stupid. Which is Fincher's overriding thesis with all of his work. And I'm like, okay, I think that's right. That the way I took that was that I don't like this guy, and thus I don't like this movie, and it makes me feel bad, and I hate it. But their take was like, no, you're kind of supposed to be mad at the movie. You're kind of supposed to think that Benjamin Button is an idiot who like wastes this gift and is essentially mistaken. I mean, is that, do you agree that like that was my takeaway from their podcast? Anyway?
Yeah, that was essentially their take. And I like that take, and I think it has merit to it, and I think it slots in with the author is a genius and everything is intentional mantra that we live by.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think like there are problems with the movie outside of just that I don't love. Like there's it's a very strange movie. It's very long. So I mean, I think it's worth a rewatch, and I want to do that as well. Maybe we'll have like a mini segment. We'll come back and rehash it. The same. I'm going through the same thing with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which they really liked too, and I was very surprised about that. like and you know, that's kind of the vibe I see on the internet these days, is that The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is like a great Fincher movie, and I just like in my estimation, like the one thing I would definitely do is swap these last two and put Dragon Tattoo last. And I really want to revisit it and give it a second shot and figure out what happened to me. Am I missing something, or is it just not for me?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think Fincher is characteristically kind of a distant, cold director. And of all of his movies, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is the most distant and the most cold.
Yeah.
And that, to me, like personally, what I come to movies for, that's not really why I like Fincher. I kind of like Fincher despite the coldness. Like, and he makes it work for him. So that's not my favorite of his movies. Although I'm sure, like it is just a very well done movie. Like clearly, I don't think we disliked it because it's like you know, bad. It's just I like these other movies more. Was more my feeling.
I do think one of our big complaints that I recall with Dragon Tattoo is that it's very much a movie that feels like it's a novel. In all the ways in which that works in a novel and doesn't work in a film. They really hurt it. In my estimation, at least,
like pacing wise and narrative wise, I agree that is the problem with the movie. Yes,
because there's kind of two storylines happening at the same time, and it takes a long time before they come together in a satisfying way.
That was an interesting,
that really feels you feel weird about that.
That was a really interesting thing that they talked about on that podcast that we are now cribbing from. Is that the idea was that this was going to be Fincher's sort of great foray into the field of making a series of rated R films for grown-ups. And he was going to make the Dragon Tattoo films, and there never were any more. And so a lot of the stuff with Lisbeth that just feels very like narratively inert because it doesn't go anywhere in that movie. It was meant to be a setup for stuff that was going to happen in a sequel that never happened. Apparently, allegedly. So
that makes sense. It doesn't make me like the movie, but no. I guess there's a reason for it. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that aside, where do you think the killer goes in this list? I'm very cold on Mank right now, and it's just because I haven't thought about Mank a single solitary time since we wrapped up the episode on Mank. Obviously, we enjoyed it because I really like Panic Room, and we put it above Panic Room. So the question is the killer better than Mank? I think is a great place to start.
I really think it's interesting that you say that. I guess we're generally on the same wavelength, because I was looking at the range of like 6 through 8, basically. Like, is it better than? Is it you know, somewhere in the vicinity of Alien 3, Panic Room, and Mank, basically. I just don't remember Mank that well. I don't even feel qualified to like comment on this. I'm like,
but isn't that a testament to or an admonishment of the film, like that like because Gone Girl, like, love that movie.
Yeah,
don't think about it all the time, but like right now, thinking Gone Girl, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a great viewing experience.
Yeah,
and I think Mank, and I'm like, Gary Oldman.
Yeah,
Black Citizen Kane. Okay.
Like basically it's Gary Oldman being incredibly awesome for
Yeah.
2 hours.
Yeah.
I actually think I've made up my mind. I do think it belongs. It's at slot number 6. I think it's going to unseat Mank.
Okay.
And maybe I'll
Okay.
feel like that was a sacrilege later.
Yeah, and I mean the real question is like, we're not going to redo this whole list, but like, would Mank slide further down?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I think that feels right, because I look at this top 10 or top 5, sorry, and I'm like, oh, these are like unassailable, brilliant films, like every single one of these, and you could quibble about like which order these 5 films should be in, but like those 5 are like fucking masterpieces of film, and so like,
and
is the killer there? No, I don't think so.
I think that's fair, because not only are the top 5 beloved by critics, but they're also beloved by audiences. Whereas you've now just told me that the killer is not widely beloved by audiences, and no. Thus I don't think it can really be, like you said, solid.
Yeah. So it feels like that middle of the pack. And I do think it's the best of the middle of the pack. I do. Like, I like Panic Room a lot. Alien 3, we had a lot of fun with. I think that we were so kind of happy about how good that movie was, actually, because I think we kind of went into it expecting, the notorious Alien 3, and we both loved watching that movie.
Yeah.
But it just feels like the best of the mid tier feels right.
I agree.
And I think this might be the exact logic we used for Mank, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like it's not that great, but I don't want to put it below Panic Room, basically.
Yeah. So all right, that's it. So we're slotting The Killer into number 6, which knocks Mank back to 7, and then we roll all the way back up to The Curious Case of Benjamin Button in last place at 12. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
We'll continue to add some Fincher movies to this as we go. He's pretty regular with his films. I think the longest he went was between, I believe, Social Network. No, it was Gone Girl and Mank. I think was the longest amount of time, because he did a lot of things, like he did Mindhunter on Netflix, and I think he did some other work on Netflix, because he was part of what's the Kevin Spacey Netflix show that we can't talk about anymore because Kevin Spacey.
I know what you're talking about.
I never watched it, so I don't remember the name of it. Anyway, he helped produce that show, and I think directed the first few episodes. And people blame Fincher for the fact that Netflix shows all look like this specific look now, because they all just have been copying Fincher's style since he set the tone for it from the very beginning.
Yeah, well,
and nobody can do Fincher style quite like he can.
It's true.
All right, that is it. That is The Killer at number 6. I'm happy with this, Matt. I'm very happy with this.
Yeah, I stand by it.
Doof. All right, before we go for the week and for the year, because we're going to be off next week, we did want to announce officially our next series. We're going to spend the next 10 weeks catching up with the Oscars. So we're going to watch 10 films that are expected to be, or hopefully will be, the Best Picture nominees for the 2024 Oscars, which are coming March 10th. Matt, it's like kismet, because it's literally exactly 10 weeks from our scheduled start date of this. So we would begin the series on Friday, January 5th, and it is exactly 10 weeks from there to the Oscars. So
we'll just have to never miss a single week.
I know we have to now. So here's the deal. As we said at the beginning of the show, the official Academy Award nominations are not announced till January 23rd, which would be our third week of doing this. So we're gonna have to make some guesses, and so here are the 10 films that I think are going to be nominated for Academy Awards for Best Picture. So I'll read these for you here, Matt.
Okay.
So we have Oppenheimer, Barbie, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Holdovers, Maestro, American Fiction, Past Lives, The Zone of Interest, and Anatomy of a Fall. All right, that's our 10. Okay. Now, some of these might not be nominated, right?
Yeah.
So my plan is the first 3 episodes we do will be on the ones that I'm almost 100% confident will definitely be nominated. Okay. So we will begin the show with Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Killers of the Flower Moon, because I'm like 99 to 99.9% each of those movies is definitely going to be in the Best Picture race.
Okay, that sounds very rational to me, and conveniently, I've already seen 2 of them.
So. Yeah, and then we will adjust the others based off that. But Matt, this is a really interesting thing here, because for perhaps the first time ever, you have seen more of these films than I have.
which is not really saying much, because that's 2 out of 10. But yes,
and I have seen 1 out of 10. The only film on this list I have seen this year so far is Barbie. That's it.
Well, that's what happens when you're in baby jail.
I know. I will say, though, you probably recognize 3 of these films.
That is correct. I recognize, and I kind of want to see Killers of the Flower Moon, and yet don't, because like I know the subject matter, and I basically know that it's going to make me feel really bad for.
Sure.
And I'm like, I already feel bad about this. Why do I have to watch a movie about it? So, but it's the rest of them. I have no idea what any of these movies are, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the really complicated thing that's going to happen, and we're going to try to structure this as we go. Some of these movies are still in theaters, and not available to stream yet. So I'm hoping as we move through the next few weeks and months that these movies will slowly appear on streaming. And then we won't have to figure out, okay, Matt, this week we got this movie and we have to go to the theater to see it. I'm trying to avoid that because it's very difficult for me to get out to the theater right now. But this is new for us. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out together.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, and for the first time ever, Matt, you will walk into the Oscars.
Yeah.
Having seen every single movie nominated for Best Picture.
That might actually give me some sense of investment, because for the last many years, honestly, I've just been like, 3 days later, like, oh, what won the Oscars? Haven't seen it.
Yeah, and it's gonna be fun. I hope people will participate at home and play along and watch these movies with us and talk about them with us. It's gonna be a good time. We're gonna begin with Barbie, Matt. So we're gonna start with Barbie. We're gonna move on to Oppenheimer, and then go from there. So our episode 2 weeks from now will be on the biggest movie of last year, Barbie.
All right, I can't wait.
I'm kind of. It's been a while since I watched that, so I'm gonna watch it again. I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times. I watched it in theater and I watched it at home once. So
nice.
Yep.
All right, so catching up with the Oscars begins in 2 weeks, but that is going to do it for us this week. If you have any opinions about The Killer or David Fincher in general, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or on Twitter @doofmedia. Just wanted to say here, we got some great feedback from people on the Blind Spot series. So thank you, those of you that sent emails in letting us know what you thought, especially those that really enjoyed it. Considering, that it was one of the lower downloaded series we've done, getting that kind of feedback was great to see. So thank you so much.
Yeah, really appreciate that.
You can also find us on Twitter at Doofmedia or on Reddit. We spent the entire episode making fun of Reddit, but if you want to go there,
yeah. I make fun out of love. I have a lot of Reddit karma due to all the threads.
Yeah, I spend probably too much time on Reddit.
Me too. Anyway, if you're not subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you don't miss this new feature as we go through all of the Oscar bait films.
Don't you start, Matt. You haven't even watched them yet.
That's true. You can find us on any of the major podcasting platforms.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, please consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at any of the available levels. On top of this work we do here and our other shows, we also have a bunch of bonus content available for subscribers. Matt and I are going to be taking a look at the Stephen King mini-series. Sure. Castle Rock starting in January. We're going to watch 2 episodes a month and have a bonus podcast about that. So if you like that show and want to listen to us talk about that, subscribe now. Do it. Go.
Yeah.
Right now.
And also please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That is correct. And that is going to do it for us this year. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you all in 2024 as we begin to figure out what the deal with all these Oscar films are.
That's right. Merry Christmas.
We'll see you then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.